Greetings, everyone. This is Ehavever from the Chronicles of Ehavever, and today I'm going to be doing a video where I'm going to be basically critiquing something that I noticed last night on a video that Rabbi Singer did on Tenak Talk, where a missionary named Radar Apologetics called in and asked him a question in the form of a challenge. So just to give a background, I've done a couple of videos about certain things that Radar Apologetics has stated in his own videos. But I found this last night to be so interesting, I couldn't turn away from doing something concerning it or commenting on it. So just to give an idea, the person on the right that you see here, if you can see my mouse moving, the guy in the red kind of hoodie with the red NY, I think New York Yankees hat on, is a missionary by the name of Radar Apologetics. He claims to be a rabbi, which his, I guess, authorization to call himself that came from a messianic organization. He grew up Catholic, according to his own description of his background. And he does a number of videos on YouTube, usually, trying to kind of make the Christian argument, the Christian case, as if it's something that's like a Judaic case or, if you will, a rabbinic case. Okay, so basically, I'm not going to go through and actually watch the video. What I kind of want to do is just, give you the ability, those who are watching this video, to actually look at the video yourself. What you want to look for is a timestamp of about 50 minutes in and 26 seconds to 56 minutes to 23 seconds. That's the timestamp from when the missionary guy who's here, Radar Apologetics, calls in to the time that Rabbi Singer basically answers his question or his challenge, in a will, because it was more of a challenge than it was really a question. And you'll see what I mean in just a second. So essentially, just to kind of cover what points, this missionary was bringing up, what he basically did was he called into the show, which is, it's fine. Rabbi Singer didn't mind it. But then he started making like a number of like statements that are like really strange statements. If you know Hebrew or if you're someone who's Jewish, there's statements that are, I think, are more probably in the line of the way that, Christian apologetics talk amongst themselves, but it's not something that's used in Hebrew. It's not something used in the Jewish community. And the basic gist of the question was concerning the parts of the Torah where, someone will, we Jews say that there's a part of the Torah that says that, the Creator is not a man. So what, Radar Apologetics basically did was try to bring up that part of the Torah and say, okay, if you say he's not a man, but why is it that in, the parasha that we call Bashalach, that basically deals with the Song of the Sea, why does it say that Hashem is a man in that? And this is one of those things, this is a classic example that, as I always say, that you have to pull out the Hebrew text. And Rabbi Singer does that. And he asked them a very good question that this particular missionary doesn't really address. So, they kind of like said, okay, well, you've asked your question. Now it's time for us to respond. And they kind of cut it off from there. And then Rabbi Singer responded. And Rabbi Singer asked him a really good question to start off with. And that's concerning the issue of, okay, in the Hebrew language, the word partially used in this is ish. Well, what does that word mean? And does it only have one meaning? And this is where, this apologetics kind of went into some areas that don't really make a lot of sense. And I'll cover them in terms of what Rabbi Singer's response was, because it's easier to really understand if you see it in context. Okay, so in context, the way it started was that the question that this particular missionary asked was concerning Bamidbar, or Numbers 23:19. And this is something that is used by a lot of Jews, especially to respond to this idea that Christians have about the Trinity and about, the creator of all things being a man and things like that. So essentially, the way it starts is like this. Within the Jewish context, we say that, the Torah says here, talking about Hashem, lo ish, and then the next word is el, in Hebrew is read from right to left. Okay, so then it also mentions that he's also not uven ben adam. So it's like basically reading it from context as lo ish el v'yachazev uven adam nahom. So what's in the red is that Hashem is not an ish, and that's one way of understanding is the word man. And then the next one in the blue is uven adam. So ben adam is like saying human or even man also. So there's two statements being made in this part of the Torah that Hashem is not, man, and the reason why it's stating that is because it's like saying that Hashem, for example, saying here, Hashem is not a man, and he's not deceive or dupe, because on some level all humans will deceive and dupe for different reasons, depending on our circumstances. But every human being does this in one way or the other in life for whatever reasons. But Hashem is not like that. Further to this point, when it says Ben Adam, it's like saying he's not a Ben Adam, meaning in Hebrew that would be like saying he's not human, or not the son of a human, So when it says Hashem El is not a son of a man, a son of a human, a son of man or human, and in Christian terminology, you hear this a lot in the New Testament, where the New Testament writers call Jesus a lot like son of man. Well, this says that Hashem is not a son of a man, and does not cause himself to relent, in meaning change attitudes. So, this is the thing that, was first brought up by this Radar Apologetics, but he brought it up in English. He didn't bring up the Hebrew at all, which is an important point to make. So then what he went to was he goes to Shemoth Exodus 15:3, where in the Song by the Sea, one of the statements that's made is the following, where it says, Adonai ish milhomo. Now, the question he asked Rabbi Singer was, well, what does this mean? Because in, if you will, one sense, a person could say, okay, well, this translates into Hashem is a man, is man war. That would be a little translation. Hashem, man war, if you want, But again, the question is, what does this mean in context? So within context, one of the issues that's important is within Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, there was no punctuation and no vowels that are added to the text. But within context, what this translates into is Hashem, comma, is a warrior, strong in war, semicolon. Now, this will be important. I'll show later why this is important and why the vowels being there are very important in terms of the definition. So the question here is the issue of, okay, what does the word ish mean on its own? And what does the statement ish milhomo mean, for example, when put together? So we have to deal with a few issues of linguistics. Okay, again, we have to ask the question, just like he's asking in a sense, but it was more of a challenge. What does the word ish mean? This is what you see in the Hebrew on the left. And does it have one meaning based on what, like, Rabbi Singer was asking, like, okay, what does the word mean? And does it only have one meaning? So let's look at a couple things. This is a Hebrew this is a lexicon. It's an English lexicon that deals with the Hebrew language of the Tanach. Now, this is actually a Christian lexicon. So here's one thing that's important. If you look at the definitions given for the word ish, the first one is man. But then if you look at, for example, number 2, the second meaning of the word is husband. So the word already has 2 meanings. And if you look at the third one, it says man as opposed to God to animals. So the question, why would animals need to be brought up in this issue? We'll get to that in just a second. Then the fourth one that's there, and this is all in the Roman numerals here, you see that it says, okay, ish emeth, ish awan, ish to'ar. But then you see right here where it says ish milchama, which is what we saw earlier in the Song by the Sea in Exodus 15:3, and it says a warrior. Now notice it doesn't say man and then like war. It says like a warrior. Ish milchama as a statement together means it's like describing something that is a warrior, or something that's brave in battle, or or successful in battle, as we'll see in other sources. So let's look at another source. Let's look at the Etymological Dictionary of Biblical Hebrew based upon the commentaries of Rabbi Samson Reshel Hurst by Rabbi Matithyahu Clark. So you'll see here that the definition of the word ish, or the 3-letter roots of ish, aleph yud shin, means to withstand or exist. So then, one idea is that, the word can, mean man with a proven character, or woman contemplating a man, and he gives different sources for where these words are used in this way. And the word exists. Okay, that's from Samuel, 2 Samuel. So this is a second definition based on another source. What if someone says, well, I don't believe, in the rabbinical source, rabbi writing this is of course going to say something different, and that's again dealing with what the word ish means. Okay, well, let's look in a modern dictionary, in modern Hebrew that's not based upon rabbinics, but it's just a modern Hebrew. So what does it say? It says the word ish, for example, one of the meanings of the word is dealing with what number 1 here says Adam Enosh Gever Zachar Bifnei Adam. So this means that one definition is dealing with something that's a person, a human being, a man, specifically a Gever. A Zachar means like a male, of the human species. Now, the going back here, and I think my little marks that I put here to try to like show this kind of messed up, but essentially what it says here in the number 2, it says Baal Laisha, means a husband of a woman, and then it says in number 3, Azachar biva'alei chaim. This means that a male animal can also be called an ish. So, and then also the fourth definition is gibor, basically meaning someone who's like, strength, or amitz, meaning that it can also be used to describe like strong characteristics. And number 5 is it can be described mishehu, like someone, it doesn't have to be specific to like male or female. Now, going a little bit further, this dictionary also has the statement ish milchama, and the definition it gives for it is in the blue here, lochem menusa bisde hakarav. What this means is that this is a warrior who's like basically skilled or tested in the field of battle. So this isn't specific to being human. Isn't specific to being male. That basically this is a statement that's used to describe the characteristic of something, rather than specifically saying it's like a man per se. So the person may say, well, wait. How is this even possible? That all these definitions exist for this one word. Well, first of all, what you have to understand is that we're talking about ancient Hebrew here. We're not talking about a modern day language. And we can also look at the translation to the Aramaic that was made of the Tanach about 2,000 years ago by Onkelos, who was a convert to the Torah within the Jewish community. And if you look at his translation, for example, he says that to translate the text of Numbers 23:19, he says, Lob kamile b'nei anosho. And then he further says, "B'nei onasho amorim umachabedin." So essentially, he's describing that, when it says like Hashem is not an ish, basically it's like, the words that Hashem is not a human being, and that Hashem doesn't operate in the way that human beings do. And what the basic issue here is basically saying is that, to kind of abandon one's word or to, like to relent from something is a human characteristic. Hashem doesn't do those things. Hashem does not change. Hashem is not human. Hashem is not, an ish, or, the son of an ish, or the son of a man. So then if we go a little bit further and say, okay, well, what about the part where it says in the Psalm by the sea? So one of the things that's important here to note is that, remember I told you in previous videos about what's called the ta'amim. It's the type of punctuation that's here. So the type of punctuation says Adonai, it's like saying comma, Hashem, the Shem Hashem, ish milchama, all one statement, Athnoha, stop and thought. So when translated into Aramaic, Onkelos translated this as Hashem mori nisachon karavaya. So like Hashem is, successful in combat. So this tells us that this, concept of this missionary brain trying to bring to Rabbi Singer is probably based on the idea that the guy doesn't really know the Hebrew language very well. And the one way to really prove this out to end off is that if you look at the Samaritan Torah does not have Adonai ish milchama. It has Shema, which is how they say Hashem, or that's what, instead of saying, the name of Hashem, they say Shema, which like means the name. It's Aramaic. Gebor, ba milhama. So, and I think I'm probably mispronouncing it in terms of their like language. So I'll just say Gibor b'milchama. So instead of saying Ish milchama, there it says Gibor b'milchama. And essentially what this means is that there's a lot of people who will say that the Samaritan Torah is based upon a translation, or as well as what do you call it, pirush, or a commentary, of the Hebrew Torah. So essentially what they did was in their Hebrew text, they essentially basically went with a commentary and changed their written text to match it. So theirs doesn't even say Ish Milchama. It says what the definition of Ish Milchama is in their text, for example. So what this means is that a person could say, well, I don't believe in the Jewish text. I only go by the Samaritan text. And their text doesn't say that Hashem is a man. In fact, every place where the Jewish text seems to imply it in some way, meaning that the Pashat, the simplified version of the text says something that sounds like that, the Samaritan Torah has it as an adjective rather than like as a noun, for example. So their text proves out what Rabbi Tovia was even saying. So if you look at the whole rest, the breadth of this like particular issue, it's very simple that Hashem is not a man. Hashem does not operate in the ways of man, and that when the Torah is using these statements, it's using the language of men to describe Hashem in ways that human beings talk, because otherwise there'd be nothing to talk about. But it's not trying to say that Hashem is a human being. And if you look, even a Christian source, even like Rabbi Singer mentioned, says something different than what this Radar Apologetics missionary was saying. So this is Ahav Ever from the Chronicles of Ahav Ever. I hope this helps out. Take care and bye.